Welcome to another episode of Ask Me Anything, where we sit down with nonprofit leaders from the greater Helena area and learn about their organizations and how they make our hometown great. Today we're here with Ross from Raven's Feather Productions. Hi, thanks for coming, Ross.
Thank you.
And you are our July 2024 Nonprofit of the Month. So we're just squeezing this right at the very end of the month. So it might actually come out in August, but we're happy to have you. Tell us a bit about... Could you introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about how long you've been a part of this organization, how it got started.
So we started in 2021. We were talking about what to do when we came out of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So Raven's Feather started with 3 founders, myself, Kelly Clavenkheim, and Barry Stambaugh. Mm-hmm. And we were all interested in expanding theater opportunities in Helena. And so we started discussing what was possible and how we could do it without having a big budget. And we created Raven's Feather and started doing shows.
Nice. So tell us in 10, this is one of our favorite things, 10 words or less, tell us what your organization does.
So we produce contemporary stories for contemporary audiences.
Good job. You did it in 8, I think. That's well done. Okay, so contemporary stories for contemporary audiences. So that means you're probably featuring different kind of shows than some of the other theater groups in town.
Yeah, mostly. I think the emphasis is maybe less on contemporary, although we do tend to pick shows that have been written in the last, say, 20 years.
Okay.
But we're also in a kind of different performance space. We tend to do black box theater, which means you don't have big giant sets, you don't have big giant casts. And a lot of what's available for audiences kind of in community theaters in general, there's a big focus on musicals. Mm-hmm. And we felt like the storytelling part, the classic play structure is not as available as we'd like it to be.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
So tell me, which plays, which shows have you already done?
So our first performance was called Grounded. And that was a one-woman show. Katie Wright, big name here in Helena Theater, starred in it. And it's an amazing show. Actually, it's about a woman pilot who is grounded after she has a baby. But then when the Air Force puts her back on duty, they don't put her back in her jet, but they put her on drone duty. And the whole story is about the psychological pressures she faces being essentially a soldier by day and a mom by night. Mm. And how that affects both her family life and her professional life.
That's pretty interesting.
It is. Yeah. It is. And we are also interested in kind of how these contemporary stories reflect our society. And so we partnered with Merlin CCC.
Oh, yeah.
And we did a couple of presentations in conjunction with the performance that weren't directly related to the show itself. Mm-hmm. We had a speaker talk about kind of what are the ethics and morality of warfare, and another speaker talk about how difficult it is for veterans to reintegrate into society, which really fit with Grounded quite well.
Right, kind of themes of the show, even if it's not about the show.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that the 3 of us really wanted to do. We didn't want to just be like, okay, here's a show, watch it, go home.
Right.
Because of the focus on contemporary stuff, it's like, okay, theater is reflecting our society. Can we have extended conversations about our society?
Well, and so Merlin would be a great partner for things like that.
Yes.
So you guys kind of, that's something that you're focusing on, is to collaborate with different groups and find outreach for a bigger conversation.
And we don't do it necessarily with every show.
Sure.
But we did it recently with a show called Shiner.
Okay.
And that show is a piece about kind of the power of music and disaffected young people. And what happens in that show is the two teenagers at one point make a suicide pact.
Oh, golly.
And they don't go through with it. But it is an integral part of the story. And so we partnered with Lewis and Clark County Mental Health.
Yeah.
And we had someone come in after every show, talk about how to recognize depression, how to recognize somebody who might be thinking about suicide, what to do about it. And so, that's, again, part of bringing back the contemporary issues.
And that's a big one in Montana.
It is.
Yeah.
Our most recent show was called What Happened While Hero Was Dead. And it's a takeoff on Shakespeare's play Much Ado About Nothing.
Right.
And so it's a comedy I directed, and I wanted to kind of give it a local spin. And so we talked to the Bumblebee Studios people, and we used aerialists.
Sabrina May and that crew.
Sabrina, yeah. And we used aerialists to present a certain part of that play.
Oh, wow.
So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that would be. That's a pretty cool group.
It was. It was great.
And also really cool. So that's 3 that you've talked about. What was the 4th one you guys have done?
Fourth play was called The Realistic Joneses.
Okay.
And it's a play by Will Eno, kind of about 2 families that have the same name.
Okay.
And they are they're living in a small mountain town in the West, which is unnamed.
Yeah.
And the 2 men in the story both have this rare, obscure disease, which has unusual symptoms, which are used for comedic value.
Okay.
But the serious part of it, even though it's a comedy, is like, how do people cope with those issues? And one guy is kind of in denial, and his wife is trying to, make everything happen. The other guy is protective of his wife. He's hiding everything from her because he's afraid she can't cope. And so he's trying to do all the coping, even though he's kind of falling apart in odd ways. And so
that would be an interesting take on how people respond to illness, chronic pain, things like that. Yeah.
And despite being a comedy, it has this kind of dark undercurrent that makes it a fascinating show.
Yeah. Well, this sounds pretty cool. I haven't actually seen any, and now I'm starting to be very sorry that I've missed them. So you guys have done 4 shows so far. About how often do you like to put a show out? How does that work for you?
Our goal is to do 2 shows a year at this point. We may evolve into doing more, but because we don't have a staff, we're all volunteer. We don't have, our own building. We don't have, a big set of financial backers or anything like that.
Right. You're scrappy.
We're sticking to 2 shows a year.
Yeah.
If we do it. Next one, or the second to next one, or whatever, is called The Children.
Okay.
And it was written by a British playwright, and it's considered one of the top 5 plays of this half of the century in Britain.
Okay.
And it's set in England and in a situation resembling the Fukushima disaster. A nuclear plant has had an accident, and it needs to be cleaned up. And the 3 characters who are part of the play are people who worked there at one point, and they are meeting again to discuss the issues and how they'll be involved. And you then learn about their past history together, their relationships, and so on. Again, it has a lot of comic moments, but a very serious undertone.
Nuclear meltdown.
Yeah. But funny. And again, with this one, we're going to be partnering with someone to have discussions about those kind of issues. And really kind of the key topic of the play is not the specifics of nuclear meltdown or something like that, but it's like, our actions in the present affect the future. How do we think responsibly about those?
Yeah. Speaking of that and kind of what the kind of roles you might have available for people, how can people get involved? What are you looking for from the community? I'm guessing ticket buyers are a good start.
Yep. Audience is always a good place to start.
Yep.
Also, because a lot of people haven't heard from us yet, we don't have a big budget to advertise. Even just attracting actors and directors is something that we have to work pretty hard at. And it's not that Helena is necessarily short of actors, but if they don't know about us,
they won't know to audition. They won't know
to audition, that sort of thing. And we can always use, the kind of box office help, people being ushers and stuff like that.
But, and then right now you said you're mostly doing your shows out of the HAT?
Yes, the Helen Avenue Theater.
Yep.
Which
is also the home of the Montana Playwrights Network.
Right. And knowing, when we were first starting up, knowing that the Playwrights Network was planning on opening the Helen Avenue Theater was really important to us, because there's not a lot of spaces available if you don't own your own theater. And so that theater is a really nice fit for a small company. It's 80 seats. We're not pulling in, we couldn't fill the Civic Center, with an entire run, much less on a single day. And so You'll get there. So that really made our path a little easier, and so we're really grateful to Pamela Mencher for starting that up. At the same time, if we do grow, we may end up elsewhere. We also may, I know one of our board members is really interested in having us do some outdoor productions, and so we're looking at when it's possible to do that and how that might work.
But when you're talking about something like the Hat Theater and the 80 seats and a black box, that all to me suggests an intimacy with the audience, which probably is really good for creating a space for conversation.
It is, and it really reflects one of my personal loves about theater. I've been to shows on Broadway. I've been to shows in San Francisco where you have these, $100,000 sets and professional actors and everything like that, and they're amazing. But one of the things I really like about the black box format is that the audience has to use their imagination, and that brings them into the story with you. And I really love that about small theater.
And tell us a bit about why you're called Raven's Feather Productions. I thought that was a pretty cool story. Speaking of stories.
We obviously needed to come up with a name as a new organization, and I wanted it to have some kind of local resonance. And Ravens are found in this area.
There's one on the top of Super One that was just carrying on at me last week. So, they're around for sure.
They're super smart. They are also trickster birds in storytelling. And so you're not always getting what you expect. And we kind of like that aspect of it. So we thought a raven was a great animal to emulate.
That's cool. I like that too. Well, is there anything else that you would like us to know about your group, or something you want us to
Well, we'd like you to know that we exist.
Yes.
And we are out there.
We are helping share the message. Raven's Feather Production exists.
And
you
we're
should know
out
about
there bringing new shows to Helena. And, you know, I read a couple of years ago that the #1 most produced playwright, I'm going to use that word playwright in quotes, was Charles Dickens.
Oh.
Because every theater on earth
does a
Christmas Carol.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And Christmas Carol is a great story. Right. But we also want to bring out the stories that people are writing today.
Right.
Because, you know, that's what's affecting us today.
Right.
And there are amazing writers who have a way of looking at these things that can really inform our lives.
Well, and I think that if you keep it to, because you've put that that boundary on your own preferences to be contemporary, that kind of gives things a chance to shine that otherwise would be very easy to overlook in the, you know, the going back for as long as we've had plays, which is a very long time.
Yeah.
And it probably is kind of fun to be a bit exploratory with that instead of going, well, we know this one is a good show that people enjoy.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, people say, well, you know, film is contemporary. You get all these modern stories, but it's really a different media. Mm-hmm. You know, you don't have the intimacy. You also have, you know, less of a focus on, you know, special effects and stuff like that when you're doing theater. Mm-hmm. And so you really can kind of dig deep into the story.
Mm-hmm. So sometimes we do follow-ups from our Ask Me Anythings. So maybe HACF will have to go to Raven's Feather Production, and we'll post about that too. So we'll keep an eye out for the last one. We have done follow-ups with Last Chance Curling Club, mm-hmm. And with the Foundation for Montana History. We went on one of their tours. So yeah. We'll follow up, see what we think about that after. So thank you again for coming. And so if you are a potential ticket holder or a local actor or director or maybe even playwright, Ross probably wants to know about you. So
I will say one thing. We're probably not going to pick local playwrights unless they've had a piece published.
Sure.
But
don't send your first time play out.
That's right. There is a place for that here in Helena. There's the Last Chance New Play Fest, which happens every November here in Helena. And I co-produce with them as well.
Oh, great.
And so they put out a call every year for 10-minute plays. And that selection process is underway right now for this November. And also, they allow groups to perform independent projects. So if you're a director and you've got a play that you'd love to see on stage, go talk to them because...
that's a thing.
That's
cool.
a thing. Yeah.
Great. Where would people find out more about that?
That would be online if you search for either Experimental Theater Co-op, which is the kind of parent organization for that, or probably better, Last Chance New Play Fest.
Great. And then Raven's Feather has its own website, ravensfeather.org.
Yep.
Perfect. That's pretty
easy
to remember.
That's where you'll find, you know, all our announcements. That's where you'll find our auditions. That's where you'll find a sign-up sheet if you want to help work in the box office or usher or something like that.
Very cool. Okay, so there's a place to sign up, so you're ready to accept volunteers when you need them.
We'll take volunteers.
Well, thank you all for watching. You can find more of our Nonprofit of the Month information, postings, and Ask Me Anythings on Facebook and on our website, HelenaAreaCommunityFoundation.org. I think I failed to mention that I'm Emily Frazier with the Helena Area Community Foundation, but we're really happy to keep bringing you our Ask Me Anythings, and please continue to send your thoughts, your comments, and your questions for our featured Nonprofit of the Month, because otherwise we make them up and we pretend that you asked us questions on Facebook. So, but thanks for a really great conversation. Thanks for being here. And yeah, we'll have to follow up after we've seen one of Raven Feather's productions.
Thank you.
Thank you.